Rams, to their credit, they were done. They had nothing to play for. Baker Mayfield trying to put himself in position to be in the conversation for potential starting quarterbacks elsewhere. He did everything he could to try to win the game. And you've got Bobby Wagner going back to Seattle. He did everything he could. Sean McVay's last game. I picked the Rams to win because I thought they really would. Because the Seahawks kind of had that, attitude, justifiably, to some extent. Well, the Lions and Packers game isn't the same time as ours. What matters if we, it's good that Pete Carroll didn't let that creep in fully. He shut it down last week because that's a loser's mentality. And if you're caught up in that, what's going to happen? You're going to end up losing the game to the Rams, and then it's moot if the Lions beat the Packers. So good for the Seahawks to hold on, and good for the Rams to give them a good game. It was, on a day that was devoid of many good games, that was at least one of the few we can point to.
Yeah, it was. I mean, what's interesting to me too, Mike, is that Baker Mayfield after the game was talking about, I know I'm a starting quarterback in this league. And I don't personally know that. I mean, I think that Baker Mayfield could be maybe somebody's bridge starter for 2023, a la Mitchell Trubisky. But, he put some good things on tape for the Rams, certainly better things than he put on tape for the Carolina Panthers. I mean, he was one of, if not the worst starting quarterback in the National Football League in 2022 when he got released by the Panthers. And so this at least showed that, yeah, there is still some talent and ability for Mayfield. But Mike, I don't know. What do you think about Mayfield's prospects going into 23?
Well, there's another guy who, when we last heard from him, was saying he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and his name's Cam Newton. His phone didn't ring all year. And I make that comparison because with Baker Mayfield, when you bring that big personality with you, which Baker Mayfield does, he did a good job in Carolina of kind of keeping it under wraps as far as we know. We don't know what they dealt with behind closed doors. But publicly, he wasn't brash. He didn't fight with reporters. A lot of the behaviors we saw in his first 4 years with the Browns didn't translate to the Panthers, which tells me he's got some self-awareness. But to come out and say, after yesterday's performance, I understand you have to be confident. But the market will determine whether or not he's a starter. Baker Mayfield does not have a vote on whether or not he's a starter. There's 32 teams. More than half of them are going to be thinking about their options at quarterback for 2023, and they know Mayfield is available. So we'll find out. The market will dictate whether or not Baker Mayfield is a starter. But you're right, Myles. He may end up in a situation. You mentioned Trubisky. I don't think you want Mayfield in that spot. The same reason you don't want Cam Newton in that spot. Because Mayfield will not be thrilled about being sent to the bench for a Kenny Pickett or whichever young quarterback it is when they decide the time has come to make the change. And, there's been talk about Mayfield staying in L.A. for a year, and maybe it would be good for him to back up Matthew Stafford. It said, well, if there's going to be a new coach, we don't know yet.
Right.
That puts that situation into turmoil as well. So, look, I still think he can play better than a lot of the guys that got trotted out yesterday. Is that enough to be a starter week in and week out? And, it's a far cry from what we thought he was going to be based on 2 of his first 3 NFL seasons. Just 2 years ago, after 2020, they won a playoff game at Pittsburgh, and we think this guy's on his way to a big contract. And, if he doesn't try to make a tackle after a turnover week 2 against the Texans in 2021, who knows what would have played out differently. And I think that's the thing that keeps him in play. You get him into a system, in an organization early enough, and you get him properly prepared. You get somebody who believes in him, somebody who buys in completely. Maybe he could still be the guy that we saw in 2018 and 2020. But I just don't know at this point. And who's going to stake their career, their future, their prospects on that roll of the dice that they're going to get the absolute most out of Baker Mayfield? I don't know who's going to do it, Myles.
Yeah, I don't either. And that's kind of the issue that he's going to run into. It's, what is the exact right system for Baker Mayfield? What is the right situation? Who is the right coach? Who are the right guys in terms of your skill players that are around him that can maximize his skill set? And you're right, man. I mean, if Sean McVay is not there, that changes the entire equation for the Los Angeles Rams, not just with Baker Mayfield, but for a lot of other positions and a lot of other people too. So that's the first domino that's got to fall there in order to say, all right, well, this is what the Rams are then going to be able to do. And frankly, if I'm Baker Mayfield, if Sean McVay's not there for the 2023 Los Angeles Rams, I don't know that I would want to be there either.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.